I'm feeling somewhat chastened this morning because I realized yesterday I had not been keeping awake and alert as our collect beseeches, because I thought that NAIDOC week, which was postponed, if you recall, until September, had happened in September. And I only realized yesterday that NAIDOC week starts today. So I issue my apologies to our Buntalung friends for that. But I also want to note that there's a certain poignancy to having NAIDOC week starting on Remembrance Sunday. And that really underlines very much our welcome to country this morning. I'll have a little more to say about that in a moment. According to an old tradition preserved in the Palestinian Targums, wrote Ron Hendel, the Hebrew Bible is the book of memories. The remembered past is the material with which biblical Israel constructed its identity as a people, as a religion, and as a culture. Ernest Renan states that national identity depends on, I quote, the possession in common of a rich legacy of memories. But significantly, he adds, forgetting, I would even go so far as to say historical error, is a crucial factor in the creation of a nation. I would add to that, it's also a stumbling block. National, ethnic, and religious identities are formed on a complex dialectic of memory and forgetting. Israel's Old Testament memories, a mixture of poetry, history, and mythology, are inevitably laced with the unhistorical, colored by literary influences and political and religious interests. Culture, history, and memory interweave in the biblical accounts of the patriarchs, bringing to us a past that is, in Rendell's words, a marvelous blend of public memory, religious vision, and literary brilliance. I love that. Now today, as I've indicated, we have Remembrance Sunday in mind. And as time goes by, I wonder more and more, what exactly are we supposed to remember? Is what we remember on this day truly historical? Or is it a slowly developing mythology for our nation? What will the people in the year 4000 CE be saying about our memories today, supposing they have access to them? What will their remembrances be? Now, the other day I noticed, perhaps belatedly, because I don't know when it happened, I'm not a very observant character, I noticed that the memorial in Elizabeth Ann Brown Park is now partly cordoned off with chains and notices dangling from the chains saying, "Sacred War Memorial, please keep off." My dictionary defines the word sacred as meaning connected with God or the gods, or dedicated to a religious purpose, and so deserving veneration. So do we have the seeds of a new religion in our local park? Who is responsible? And will it have a temple like ancient Israel did? The National War Memorial, perhaps? My imagination reels. A new priesthood of uniformed officers whose habits could well outdo the colourful fineries of the best Catholic liturgical garb. Furthermore, it is, at the very least, insensitive to the Bundjalung nation upon whose land I preach today, the traditional owners of the land which host our memorial. I thought to myself this morning as I came in debating what colour I should wear, that if I had a stole in the colours of the Aboriginal national flag, I'd have worn that. So what exactly are we supposed to remember? And what is an appropriate way to do so? Canon Rachel Mann, in her book Fierce Imaginings, wants us to hear, quote, some of the lost and never heard voices of the Great War. And she goes on to say, to take seriously the stark truth about the loss of the First World War brought about, that the First World War brought about, the loss of countless young men whose voices never counted in the first place in our society. The loss of the capacity to talk about their wounded experiences by those who survived. The loss of certain myths about manhood. And the loss of a God who providentially ordered history and protected his own. Well, with a nod to Ronald Rendell, we must bear in mind that stark truths, especially unacknowledged ones, the hidden ones, tend to get lost in mythologies laced with the unhistorical, or disappear altogether. In 1959, the poet Geoffrey Hill published 2 sonnets under the title Two Formal Elegies for the Jews of Europe. Now, much of his work explores the use of art as an act of atonement to give voice to the victims of the Holocaust, and that bears witness to other historical atrocities, all in a world that has become, he wrote, witness-proof. The second sonnet documented and safe. We have enough witnesses, our world being witness-proof. The sea flickers, roars in its wide hearth. Here, yearly, the pushing Midlanders stand to warm themselves, men brawny with life. Geoffrey Hill came from the Midlands of England. Women who expect life. They relieve their thickening bodies, settle on scraped sand. Is it good to remind them on a brief screen of what they have witnessed and not seen? deaths of the city that persistently dies. To put up stones ensures some sacrifice. Sufficient men carry their weight. At whose door does the sacrifice stand or start? Erecting historical monuments, says Hill, to the Holocaust ensures some sacrifice by sufficient men who carry their weight. But in his sonnet, the words some and sufficient vibrate with doubt. And the poet draws attention to the inadequacy of witness, which can never fully recapture and convey the experience of the past to those living in the present, even for those events that seem relatively recent. He can't contrast what is witnessed with what is seen. And he points to the deficiencies of memory as though even those who lived through traumatic events cannot fully comprehend them. That, said Mark Oatley, is why we need visible memorials. What a pity we don't recognize that of the Aboriginal culture. If we're not, said Oakley, if we are not to be dishonest, shallow, and unreal, we need to make the invisible visible. And today's memorials, of course, have a much broader canvas. I hope you've noticed that. For the unknown and the unacknowledged are also being represented in a way that they never were in the past. Let it be so, but let us not turn them into temples for sacred festivals. The original motive, as you know, of Remembrance Day was quite simply to remember the fallen. But that simplicity embraces the unthinkable horror that war brings to individuals, communities, and nations. The 2-minute silence was first proposed by the mayor of Cape Town in 1918 for the whole city, marked by the noonday gun on Signal Hill. It was an awesome experience for the Cape Town citizens. The whole city, can you imagine? Silent as a grave. Every day from the 14th of May 1918 to the 14th of May 1919. So what do we remember? Certainly the fallen, the maimed, the mangled lives, but also, perforce, the unknown that has escaped the notice of history and narratives. And that is to say, the things that we do not know, or the things that we have forgotten, or the things that we do not wish bring to mind. So when we say, lest we forget, let our remembrance be not only for the things we know as historical fact, but also the things we do not know. Not known because not looked for, as T.S. Eliot might have put it. George Eliot's concluding paragraph of Middlemarch gives eloquent expression to this. The good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. The other dimension of remembrance, as Mark Oatley remarked, is the non-negotiable God-given dignity and preciousness of each human life, the beauties and strength of friendship and love, the courage of working for what is just and fair. These too we must remember in their purity. And that is why a pledge for the future is now a part of remembrance services. For we cannot talk about freedom, can we, without embracing responsibilities and values. Let us know. Let us remember. Let us change, lest we forget.